We are Pro Cannabis Media.
All right, welcome back to the final half hour of Cannabis Chat for this Medicinal Monday. I'm Jimmy Young from the Pro Cannabis Media Studios, and I am joined as usual on Mondays with Alyssa Merrill, the founder of flowerandtonic.com. And we are so happy to welcome in Dr. Eric Ruby into our interview Zoom room. Dr. Eric Ruby, thank you so much for joining us here on Medicinal Monday.
Pleasure to be here.
And actually, it's not our first time meeting because you were part of a historic live stream that I was involved with in July of 2019. And here we are, over a year later, still getting the word out and talking about cannabis as a medicinal product. Now, your story, I'm very comfortable talking about your story, but I've always felt that the people who have the story should tell it. You have a very personal reason why you were introduced to cannabis, and you saw how powerful it was used as a medicine. Can you relate the story to us about your son?
Yes, 20 years ago, we received a phone call in the middle of the night that no parent wants to ever get, that your son is in the emergency room. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. Can you come down to New York now? We found out that my son was hit by a car and he was paralyzed. They knew it right away. And for about a year, he had significant central neuropathic pain. And he was on analgesics, opioids, and well-meaning physicians in the Boston area and New York area ended up causing him a great amount of problems with those medications. He became suicidal, and things were not doing well. And then one day he came to me and said, Dad, that pain that's 9 out of 10 all the time, central neuropathic pain, phantom pain, it's going away. I said, well, what'd you do? And his statement was, I've been smoking with my friend and the pain's going away. I said, well, that's great, but you can't use marijuana in Massachusetts. You'll get arrested. The prisons are not exactly wheelchair friendly. You're going to have to move to Colorado or California. And when he announced to me and to his mother at that time that he was moving to Colorado, she almost killed me because when you're paralyzed, you don't move halfway, 2,000 miles away. But he spent 3 years in Colorado learning what he needed. He got off all of his addicting opioids, and he was able to use a lot of CBD and not as much THC. Over the course of time, he's been actually, he with the amount of money he received from being hit by that car, he was in a crosswalk with a green light, and it was totally the person's fault. He was able to buy a grow facility, and he learned. He brought his team back to Connecticut, and he was the first licensed grow facility in Connecticut. He's doing very well. It's an 80,000 foot grow facility now, and he's still #1 in Connecticut. So seeing what happened to him and researching it for 15 years while he was doing all this, when Massachusetts opened up for medicinal cannabis, I signed on, and that was 5 years ago. But in 5 years, the American Academy of Pediatrics, although they have a policy that if no other modality works, cannabis is to be accepted as treatment. So I have been seeing families for 5 years, and the problems have ranged from pain to epilepsy to Crohn's disease, significant amounts of anxiety with people who have tried black market cannabis and really need better direction. So when you fill out the forms, and they used to be 27 pages, I always show, when I give a lecture, I always show the Constitution of the United States is, I hold it up, and it's a little pamphlet, and it's about 12 pages. But the DPH regulations, I hold that up, it's 57 pages. So there's a little bit of a disconnect. It wasn't easy to get the medicinal part going, and the recreational part also has been a bear. But I can tell you, after a 9.5-hour meeting of the Mass Medical Society on Saturday, Zoom, we came up with a policy that now does allow for, initially the MMS was totally against all cannabis. They called it marijuana. It was radioactive plutonium. Doctors who utilized it were told by the lawyers, you're going to get arrested, you're going to lose your license, they're going to put you in jail, you're going to be fined. All of that was, we could call, false news. That's not what happens. If you go by the book, if you do the regulations, if you are conscientious, you can prescribe cannabis, or I should say you can certify a patient. And once that patient is certified, you can advise and consult on the proportions and the milligrams. And it is right now, that policy from the MMS stresses research and education. And now nothing in that policy says marijuana. It's all cannabis. So they're trying to get rid of the stigma. And that was something that I worked out with the chair of the Public Health Department, Public Health Committee. It was after everything was vetted. We vetted it through the Legislative Committee, which I'm on, and the Education Committee. So this is a very, very good policy, which is significantly more liberal than we've ever had before. I was hoping I would see it in the Globe on Monday, but the meeting went all day Saturday, and I don't know what's happened for Sunday anyway. But I'm getting the full information, and I will disseminate it to various places so that the public knows that the doctors in the Mass Medical Society are now going to be on board much more than they were. So I've talked for, 11 minutes, and I think I should open it up to whatever you want.
Well, first of all, thank you for breaking that story. That is great news. And it's funny. Sometimes when you retire, this is what I hear. Oh, wait, I've got to stroke this monitor. Hang on. Magic. Sometimes when you retire, you discover that you're actually more important than you were when you were actually keeping office hours and seeing patients regularly. I mean, you're retired now, right?
Well, yes. The issue is, though, they wanted to throw a retirement party for me. And I said, I've had a party every day for 43 years.
Oh, that's nice.
And I'm writing in a journal, and it says in the journal, what do you want to do today? And I wrote down, I want to see patients. That's what I do. So it just was, I told my staff in the summertime, we don't have treatment for COVID. We don't have a vaccine for COVID. And my staff has been with me for 35, 40 years, almost all of them. So we're all over 65. And I said, we are lucky so far. We're seeing 20 kids a day because you can't do immunizations virtually. 20 kids a day, 20 parents a day. Everybody has their temperature taken. Everybody says they haven't been exposed. And since March, we've had to close the office down twice because of COVID exposures, and everybody has to get tested.
Right.
This is a terrible situation. I gave a presentation to the Taunton Board of Health. I'm Taunton Education Department, pardon me. The superintendent of schools had a paper that I wrote, and I said, get good on being virtual,
Right.
because you're going to send them back to school, and 2 weeks later, they're going to be home again. And if you're doing it hybrid, 2 days there and 2 days not, that's still the same exposures for the teachers. And my patients are teachers too, and they don't want to teach, at least not face to face. This is dangerous.
Right.
And look at the numbers. I think Charlie Baker's done a pretty good job. I think he's kind of afraid to be a little more specific, but he really should be, because with the numbers going up, so I told my staff, I'm stopping October 30th, because then you're going to have Halloween, then you're going to have Thanksgiving, then you're going to have Christmas, and everybody's going back to school. So guess what's going to happen? And it's here. And I didn't need a crystal ball to figure that one out. And neither did all of our leadership at public health. And I was very excited to hear that medical schools applications are way up because of the Fauci effect. And I just hope people understand medical school's tough. You got to work hard. And a good example of that is the fact that we had a 9.5-hour meeting of the Mass Medical Society, and nobody wanted to cut it short. And we kept going. We took a half an hour for lunch and 2 10-minute breaks, and we kept going and going and going, and everybody stayed. There were 200 people who were on this virtual meeting, about 160 at the end. But that's the commitment that you have to have for medicine. So I'm glad there's a Fauci effect, but I think that we need the people to realize masks are important. 6-foot distancing is important. Washing your hands is important. And the crowds, I'm not a religious person. I'm a spiritual person, but I can't imagine a religious leader who would jeopardize his flock to preach the gospel and then have it be a super spreader event. That is, God is not going to protect them from COVID. God gave us COVID. Now we have to do something about it. So I'm getting a little bit off of cannabis.
It's okay.
But I can tell you that if you smoke it or vape it, probably not a great idea right now, since COVID does affect the lungs. And I would be much more in favor of concentrates and oils and pills and edibles. It is metabolized differently, and you will get a different effect. So it's going to take time to figure out how it's working. It's always start low, go slow. And when you change from one medication to another, you got to be careful.
Can I ask you, getting back to the COVID, and as a pediatrician, I have 3 young kids, and I used to sell Ritalin as a pharmaceutical rep. So I think the thing that's coming to me nonstop is like parents want to put their kids on medication right now, like it's not going great at home. And I realize we have to be home and this is the safe place to be. I strongly believe that, CBD is a better alternative than Xanax for a kid or Ritalin. I'm curious as a physician, like, are you seeing a lot more cases that you're looking as for anxiety as more of an option than it was previously, or how are you feeling? Because I think there's some mixed reviews on that topic.
Well, you bring in a lot of thoughts here.
Mhm.
Now, ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or attention deficit disorder, we're talking about a kid who is very active, that's the hyperactivity, or very non-focused. But in children who are anxious become very non-focused and very active. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So although it's operationally defined as attention deficit disorder, attention hyperactivity disorder, what is the etiology? Is it truly a problem with learning and reception of information and processing? Or is it a child who is so distracted and so upset and suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, or suffering from the disorder that right now all his parents and her parents are going through?
Yeah, my yelling at your kids.
So we're really treating ADHD probably too much with medication and not looking to the real basis of it. So when you talk about CBD decreases the anxiety and allows the child to focus better and allows the child to calm down. So I'm much in favor of trying 5 milligrams or 10 milligrams or 15 milligrams, start low, go slow, and do it once a day or twice a day or 3 times a day. There is not a problem with CBD. The only issue I say is please get Rick Simpson's oil or Charlotte's Web or palmetto oil or something that tells you that it is a full spectrum and not a broad spectrum. Please have that 0.3 of THC in it so you get the entourage effect. What you're buying at the gasoline station is broad spectrum, not full spectrum.
And you believe that 0.3% THC is enough to make that CBD, the entourage effect, work to its utmost effect?
No.
Thank you.
You do need a little bit more.
Thank you.
And that's where getting a certification comes in.
Right.
Now, CBD is still nutritional. CBD is still allowable. I would say you have to walk gently if the teachers are going to know about it, because you don't want DCF coming down on you. And if you're telling everybody that I'm giving my child CBD, it's not going to work. Not yet.
It's still,
wait till the principals start and the superintendents start on CBD. Have quality control. That's what the Cannabis Control Commission is all about. But there's a lot of CBD that doesn't get tested. And, we do what works. And I call it trial and success. And Bonnie Goldstein's book, and you really have to read Bonnie Goldstein's book. She's a pediatrician in California. It's called Cannabis Revealed. It's in its 2nd edition now. And she said the reason that people fail cannabis, meaning either THC or CBD, is they don't give themselves enough time with it and they don't push it enough to higher dosages. And pushing CBD, no problem. 5, 10, 15, 25, even 3 times a day, even for children, not a problem. Pushing THC, again, that's where the American Academy of Pediatrics keeps on saying you're going to damage the brain. But in actuality, the symptomatology of THC issues, meaning memory problems, executive functioning, judgment, coordination. You take a look at all of my teenagers who go to school at 7:15 in the morning. They have the identical profile of somebody using cannabis incorrectly. In other words, they're all sleep deprived. And if we don't get the Board of Education to say, delay school start times, right, it is unconscionable that the bus company has more power than the educational department. Wrong. I mean, Boston passed it and unanimously, and 2,000 parents say you can't do this to us. But you know what? They're doing it to their kids. They want the best education for their kids. Then send the kid to school when he's conscious.
Right.
Because at 7:15 in the morning, adolescents physiologically are unconscious.
Guess what's so sad though, Dr. Ruby, is my daughter has to wake up and get on her Zoom at 7 a.m. So even when they're doing hybrid days in their home, they still have to wake up. So I wish I met you before. I've been in this, and this is what's so unfortunate. And what I don't like about this industry is how hard it is to find the experts. And it took me this long to find you. Like I to be quite honest, I was a pharmaceutical rep. I knew a lot of pediatricians. I've never met you before. And how that's a challenge that we face. Like how
I don't advertise.
I know you can't, right? Well, no,
I don't want to.
Oh, okay. But I mean, what do we do as parents? Like, it's just hard. How do you find, like I'm trying to direct people to the best doctors and clinicians, but yeah, like it took a long time to find you. So.
I volunteered for the Mass chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics to give a lecture to the other pediatricians. They said, we don't want it. There's still stigma. And there's, medicine is called lifelong learning. And a physician who refuses to learn about cannabis, I mean, when I talk to the internist, the family practice people, almost all their patients at one time or another are trying cannabis, and they better understand the interaction of cannabis with the proprietary medications. I mean, when we talk CBD, we are talking interference with liver metabolism. So you really have to know who's on what, particularly when you're treating epilepsy, because you can inadvertently make the AEDs higher than they should be. So you do have to lower things. I haven't seen it, but theoretically, it's certainly possible.
Absolutely.
You just had a
Well,
meeting.
we have 3 minutes, so I don't know.
Dr. Ruby, I could talk to you for an hour, but I want to go back to the meeting you just had with your Mass Medical Society, and you had 200 physicians on this. It was a 9.5-hour meeting. I took notes on what you said, and you said they've now taken the word marijuana out of their documentation and have replaced it with cannabis. Are they becoming a little bit more, at least inquisitive about the powers of the plant?
I didn't take a poll, but some of them asked me about it. And I said, the more, see, this is what happens. The patients get smarter than the doctors.
Right. Because
the patients talk to the bud tenders, the patients talk to each other, the patients go online, the patients research their diseases and they research their treatments. Right. And the doctors are too busy. Right. So doctors feel very uncomfortable when their patients know more about their disease and their medicine than the doctor does. So you ask me, are the doctors getting involved? Their answer is, I don't know enough about it. There's not enough research, and I can't recommend it. Right. And that was a poll that was done, and I quoted that one when I gave my testimony, that over 50% of doctors are either unfamiliar or not knowledgeable.
Right. Wow. Well,
You're going to be busy in your retirement because I'll help you spread the word if you
There
would
you
be
go.
so
Well, I
kind.
have to write to my office, and the office is 35 Summer Street, 35 Summer in Taunton,
All right.
02780, because that's how I'm doing it right now. I
You got it.
have to pull things together. And once December 31st rolls around, the new year and new thoughts. Or you can fax me. I do faxes. Faxes are 508-880-9897.
I love old school. I love the old school, Dr. Ruby.
I get lost on Zoom. I get lost on email. I'm 120
You're like
emails behind half the time.
You're like
You
a
did-
natural. This has
you
been
did
a
it.
wonderful interview. Like, thank you
did
so much.
super. And I got to tell you, I'll write you another personal email. Thank you, because I tell you, I have so much respect for what you do, what you continue to do. And the fact that you retired and you're still making yourself available because you recognize that your knowledge can help people and help parents. And I just think that's a wonderful thing. I wish we had more doctors like you, Dr. Eric Ruby.
Well, I told you what my patients call me. You see, Ruby. They call me a gem of a doctor.
A gem of a doctor. I love it. And you don't want to advertise? You don't want to brand that?
But what about your son? I imagine he makes an amazing product, or is that something that, does he have CBD products or that
He
we
has
can buy?
both.
Okay.
He has both.
Right.
He's in Connecticut, and you can. I'm not. He doesn't want me to talk about him. So.
Gotcha.
There you
Okay.
Well, you do a great job of balancing what you talk about and what you don't. And again, I give you tons of credit. Thank you so much for coming on today at last moment. And as usual, you have.
I'm tired. I can do it the last minute.
I understand, but you said you're even busier now that you're in retirement. You took 9.5 hours on a Saturday to listen to your former comrades. You're still your comrades. So you're not retired. You've just taken a bit of a break, if you will, or
moving it's a different direction. Let's put it that way. It's
There you
not
go.
direct patient care all the time, but I have a number of interests, and I will pursue them.
There you go. Well, good luck with that. I so appreciate you joining us again. Dr. Eric Ruby from Taunton, Massachusetts, making tremendous impressions on all of us here at Pro Cannabis Media continuing. So thank you for that. Appreciate it. We're going to wrap things up here. And Alyssa, I mean, we had three super interviews, and that's what we'd love to do here on Pro Cannabis Media. We really do want to become a forum for the stories that we're hearing on a regular basis, because they're just not being heard enough by traditional media. That's why I founded Pro Cannabis Media, and that's what will continue. Remember, it's a whole new world of weed out there. Use it responsibly. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
We are Pro Cannabis Media.